Welcome to Frozen Temple and the third game of the evening. We have our Zerg player spawning to the top left-hand corner in teal. Playing for my Risk and Germany, it's Schnubiiii. And to the bottom right, playing in pink, Protoss for Team Red Bloods, it's Lady Azylis. The two Germans just fighting against each other, with Azylis obviously trying to take an early base down here, setting up the pylon already in order to get the gateway placed so that she will be able to just seal off this entrance towards her natural base as quickly as possible. At the same time, we will have Schnubiiii probably taking a hatch first and then into pool, but of course she's aware of Lady Azylis' tactics, so she just sends out her first overlord in order to scout the typical proxy positions she has been using in the past. Like this position over here, where she often places down a pylon and then some proxy buildings, or of course the typical 4-gate proxy building position over here. So Schnubiiii just checking out everything, also checking with the other overlord for possible proxy positions over here, and also sends out an overlord towards the entrance or towards the ramp that just leads towards the natural and the third base as well. So yeah, she actually has everything inside. Of course, her overlord will arrive at her opponent's base a little later, but she can make up with it with links quite easily, just sending a few links in, seeing what's up at the front of Lady Azylis' base, just poking the front a little bit here and there, and then later on she can just immediately fly in that overlord in order to get some good sight of what's happening inside Lady Azylis' base. But yeah, Schnubiiii prepared well. Has obviously studied her opponent. Let's see if she can take an advantage out of it. So Overlord just scouting further around, the other Overlord also moving forwards. Schnubiiii really wants to see when her opponent is coming at her or not. So robotics facility in the robotics facility in the making. Seems as if Lady Azylis just wants to go with her copied build from Koshki, where she just goes into some sort of immortal early pressure, either with adepts or speedlots, so we'll see what she wants to do. She's played this build to great success throughout the FSL Season 1 and also 2 so far, so let's see if it's going to work once more, or if Schnubiiii will just be prepared and already knows what her opponent is up, although she hasn't scouted it yet, but having studied her opponent might actually prove quite useful. So even doing the good old check with a ling around here, checks for the third base, just parks it down here. Yeah, very nicely you can actually see that Schnubiiii and Miezekotze are part of the same clan, that they actually practice together, because we can see a lot of Miezekotze's habits in Schnubiii's play, which is quite interesting to see. So third base getting thrown down. So, actually quite nicely again by Lady Azylis, just denying that overlord over here with the Stalker, just leaving it patrolling around the edges of her main base, so that she will always be able to just intercept the overlord from coming in and sniffing out what she's actually doing with the Twilight Council right behind it. So now we're going to see what it's actually going to be. So it's going to be Immortals with Charge or Laves? Charge or Laves? Don't play Blink. Charge, it is. So it's going to be charge lots with Immortals. Like I said, we've seen this build out of Lady Azylis and a lot of other Protoss players, of course, as well. I mean, it's a pretty nifty build for Protoss players. If you just manage to hit the timing, it's also pretty difficult to hold if you haven't prepared accordingly to it. We've actually seen Miezekotze die to Koshki to that build. I think exactly on that map as well. Where Koshi just ran in and destroyed everything because Miezekotze's units had just been a little bit too late. So unfortunately Schnubiiii trying to get in, gets the scout denied. Did she actually see a few of these ward gates getting up? No. So she must kind of expect something, and she's also reacting accordingly. Just throwing down the Roach Horn, throwing down the Banel Nest, producing a few more Zerglings. Needs actually a lot of Banelings in order to defend this push. But yeah, she still has some time left until the gateways finish up. But yeah, Lady Azylis just doing the build as it's supposed to do. Hitting the timings quite well. It's 5 minutes now. The gateways will be done in just a few seconds. A little bit off with the last few gateways here. So the push will not be as strong as possible, but still pretty strong, especially if we keep in mind which leagues both players are in. So Dark Shrine follow-up, that's just quite typical. So if you just don't manage to deal enough damage, you might as well just get in the Dark Templars and they might just wreck your opponent as well. Of course, the third base is going to be the potential aim. And actually that's all the thing that Lady Azylis really needs to do. Take out the third base while maybe expanding behind it once she realizes that she won't be able to pressure any forward. But yeah, that's just like the tipping point of the game. If Schnubiiii manages to take out that force without taking too many losses, especially securing the third and then driving her opponent away, discouraging her from further attacking, then she's done it and has almost won the game. If she just barely holds the second with just losing too many units, she will still not really be up ahead, because then she just has to reproduce a lot of units, because she still has to be afraid that her opponent might just push once more and kill her with a second wave. So you can't just easily move into more drones after the attack. If she just loses the third, the game is almost over, and Protoss is probably going to win, because not having enough lava around and everything will just kill you in the end. Okay, nice little Roach skin here. So Schnubiiii obviously bought the new Roach skin, and it looks pretty nifty, I have to say. So let's see, that's a lot of units, but there's also a lot of units from Azylis as well. She has the Immortals. Immortals just pretty good against these Roaches, but we also have a lot of Banelings and Lings around. I don't know, it might barely be enough, but of course the DT is in there as well. And Schnubiiii doesn't have any detection. Unfortunately, most of the units just crush into the units, and it seems as if there's just not enough left for Schnubiiii to take that engagement. More units getting walled in. The Roaches just have to retreat, and now we're at the bad position, like we said before. Schnubiiii not being able to really take down the forces and losing the base. So right now, Azylis actually already did enough damage. She could easily just retreat, take her own third base, and win the game from there on out. But maybe she just sees that Schnubiiii just doesn't have enough in order to defend that push anyways. So she will probably just try it, move in and see whether she can end the game here and now, especially with the help of these Archons here as well. More reinforcements being morphed in. Like I said, this is a very sharp timing and a very aggressive push that's really difficult to deal with if you don't answer accordingly in a very correct way and doing everything right composition-wise and everything. The most important part mostly being able to take down the Warp Prism with either Ravages or anything else, but Schnubiiii just doesn't have enough. GG's out, and Azylis takes the first game. Welcome to Frost, the second map of this best of 5, spawning to the bottom right-hand corner. In teal, it's our Zerg player, Schnubiiii. And to the top right, spawning in pink as Protoss, it's Lady Azylis, who again wants to go into an early expand build, already trying to get this area of the map sealed off, the entrance towards a natural ramp. And on a 4-player map like Frost, it's, I think, really the best thing to do. You normally really don't need to wall off up here. Yes, there is this very, very small chance that your opponent on this map might go for a 12 pool and actually even find you early enough and then just crush through your wall before it's even repaired, and then you just lose the game because you only have one pylon that gets unpowered and you don't even have the tech buildings out in order to build a mothership core, and then you just die. Or you at least get so far behind that your opponent can just easily win the game afterwards. But come on, it's really, really rare. So most of the time you just take the risk and get down with it. So Probe just checking for the third base. Of course, it's not here yet, but it will come back later on. Has already scouted the hatch first here, then going into pool and into extractor and then into pool. So just the good old usual stuff by Schnubiiii here. Nothing all too unusual there by both players here, just the typical opening. So this is going to be the Cyber Core once we finally have the 150 minerals ready. And there it goes, just leaving that small little gap that can later on be blocked with either an Adept or a Zealot, so that the army will have the chance to move out, but will not leave anything in, unless of course a drone with a mineral walk, doing the mineral walk. Just in case you're new to StarCraft and don't know, you can actually make a worker move through a unit that's on hold position if you just click it on the minerals, because then it will just ignore the unit and will walk right through it. That was just needed to be done in order for these workers not to block each other while they are working here. You can see how the workers actually move through each other while mining. And because it would have just be too difficult to set up the AI so that it would actually avoid workers while mining, they just implemented the fact that if a drone is mining, it just walks through every unit in the game. It doesn't really matter anymore. So Schnubiiii gets to see the early base. Probably not really surprised about it. Has not taken her own so far. Is probably again pretty afraid of an early push coming. I mean, she's lost against it already, so she doesn't really want to expand too early on. Maybe not having enough units in order to take her opponent down. Just gets some Zergling scouting done, very nice, especially using the routing here in order to get some vision of the high ground and of typical proxy positions that the Protoss might use. So in the meantime, Azylis tried to take down that Overlord, or at least drive it away from the proximity of her natural base, and succeeded. So, in the meantime, we have the Warp Prism incoming and a Twilight Council, so it seems as if Azylis wants to play the one-trick pony for at least the first two games. Well, maybe she's going to change it up and plays Adepts this time around, building a Glaives, but yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same play all over again. So let's see what Schnubiiii is actually doing. Last time around, we saw this build being done. It was in the Koshki versus Mitsukotze game, and Mitsukotze actually crushed Koshki convincingly by going into early Hydras and Lings. And she actually took a third base over here. Koshki just tried to move in with a Warp Prism and the units from that angle, and the Lings and Hydras actually intercepted the whole push, killed everything off. Well, not everything off, but killed off a lot. Koshki actually totally had to recall everything, but at that point in time she was already behind economically and army-wise, so Mitsukotze just pressured, moved across the map and killed off everything that Koshki had, so that was easily done. So let's see if Schnubiiii can actually manage to do kinda the same thing, using kinda the same composition. She now has the safety Roach Warren. For now she tries to go into a lair, but it's still quite some time, so I feel it's not going to be Hydralisks at all. Still has some Overlords in position, but they get driven away by the Stalker. Nice now having the speed upgrade for the Overlords, which makes it a lot easier to scout what the opponent is actually doing. But Schnubiiii doesn't have much time left to react. I mean, again, she might actually suspect what her opponent is doing. It's like the same thing that happened to her before. She tried to get in, does actually barely not see the Warp Prism over here with the Immortals. So it seems as if, again, the third base, of course, is what she wants to attack. Not too many units out, but a lot more units this time around than last time. We have the Dark Shrine follow-up as well, more Queens being produced. Not that many more units, so let's see. Again, the biggest threat of this push is the Warp Prism itself. You need some means in order to take it down. So Ravagers are usually the weapon of choice that early on in the game. If you indeed tech right into Hydras and you have a few Hydras around, they can actually do the trick. But yeah, with only roaches alone, the biggest problem is that your opponent can always pick up the mortals, can always keep reinforcing, and there's just nothing you can do against it. But this far around, it looks actually pretty good. Like I said before, Schnubiiii just blind countering her opponent's build mostly by just seeing what was happening, and that it is actually the same setup as before. So this time around, we again have the Zealots and the Speedlots. Dark Shrine is almost done, lining up with the last gateway here. That's also getting unlocked. So Schnubiiii will just take a little bit more time to realize what's happening, or actually when the push is happening, she's totally expecting it. And now she finally has some Ravagers in the mix as well. So these 3 Ravagers should be able to take down the Warp Prism once they come close enough. There's a lot of units here for Schnubiiii. Let's see if she can actually hold it. Now she realizes that the attack is coming. A lot of Zealots are actually clumped up. Getting a good surround on most of these units, waiting for the other units to arrive. Moves back a little bit, has not lost the hatchery yet, but of course she can't really afford to lose it. She needs to save it. But she's actually stopped all of these units from killing off the base, kills off the last remaining units, and it seems as if Lady Azylis, no, she doesn't want to stop. Retreats just a little bit in order to warp in a few more units. This time around, it's Archons. Or the DTs, be Archons. But unfortunately, the anti-timing here for Lady Azylis seems that she just barely can save the Warp Prism, but the rest of the units, oh, the Archons just move in time, so can now just fry on these roaches here. But it seems as if Lady Azylis doesn't really feel comfortable in that kind of position. Retreats a little bit more. We'll see whether she wants to attack again, or if she just sees that she's probably not going to win that fight. In the meantime, that was really risky here. Schnubiiii just thinking that she might have already held off the attack, just droning like crazy, going into 10 drones. That's, I mean, very brave. If Azylis had actually pressured once more right away, this totally roach-based army now might not have been able to stand up against Speedlots, Immortals, and Archons, and we still don't know if it's going to happen. So no more units for Schnubiiii right now, so she might have just barely underestimated the push potential of her opponent. We'll see if she will finally be able to do it. I mean, it's 102 to 112. We have a 68 army supply to 58, but these numbers don't really tell anything because there's just so many highly valuable units inside this army. 4 Archons, 2 Immortals, and yes, the Zealots are only low-tech units, but with charge and closing in the distance to roaches, they actually pack a pretty punch. Because actually in a one-on-one, a Zealot defeats a roach unmicroed. So, okay, finally some more Ravagers, a few more Lings. Lings actually get torn apart by these Zealots, but they don't have upgrades yet, do the Lings? The Lings actually also don't have any upgrades, so it's still the 3 hitting. So they still need 3 hits in order to kill those off, but there's so many Zealots around. I mean, if Schnubiiii actually, I mean, the position is also not the best. There's a big choke point here where you can't really get a full surround. I think it would have been a wise choice to just destroy these rocks, or just to engage the whole army out front where you can get an easy surround. But yeah, Lady Azylis just being full all in. She's still on 2 bases. She doesn't actually ever want to take a third. She wants to win with this army composition or lose it right here. And we'll see whether Schnubiiii will be able to actually get the full surround and kill off the army or not. The army supply is just barely in favor of Schnubiiii, but like I said before, there's Lings, there's Banelings, there's a lot of low-tier units that actually get hard countered by what Lady Azylis has here. With the Archons killing Lings like crazy, with the Zealots killing Lings like crazy, being vulnerable to these Banelings, but first they have to crush in and not getting killed by the Archons first. So let's see if everything is going to work out. Nice little harassment over here, luring the army a little bit out of position, now trying to move up the ramp, and actually granting Schnubiiii a better position here by moving up too far into the ramp, where Schnubiiii can actually a good surround, a little bit of move command here right into the concave of Schnubiiii, and it seems as if Schnubiiii might just barely be able to take out the last remaining units. One more Archon dies, the Warp Prism just has to run away with the last remaining Archons, and it seems as if Schnubiiii has made the hold. Wow, 117 to 66 supply. This is looking desperate for Azylis now, ladies and gentlemen. Doing another warp in over here at the left hand side, so trying to harass the spaces a little bit more, but Schnubiii still has some army up. It's a little bit out of position. Okay, maybe she's going to lose a few more units. Queen dies, and a lot of drones will die as well. But then just the roach. Okay, a few roaches popped. A little bit lucky here for Schnubiii that the 2 roaches just popped, and the zealots were all following the roaches instead of killing the whole mineral line, which they could have done. It still might not really have made any difference, since Azylis is almost outmined in the main base, being totally oversaturated by 7 workers here, by 2 over here. Now finally has to kill her own pylons with the photon overcharge in order to finally get out a worker and maybe take a 3rd base in just a desperate measure to get back into the game. But Schnubiii has all the cards in her hand, now even trying to do some sort of tech. Unfortunately 3 drones not working in the extractor here. That's so unfortunate. But yeah, this, and most of the time you just won't see this for the next few minutes, maybe. Just maybe realizing that you don't have that much gas and you should have actually more, and then maybe you keep checking for your workers if everything is really gassed up or not. But yeah, the spy trying to do a tech switch maybe into mutas, which I don't really know if it's a good decision or not. Or maybe she just wants to have it in order to go into Brood Lords later on. But yeah, I mean, okay, she lost most of her Archons. She still has the possibility to do so. But it seems as if Schnubiii just wants to push right up front. Might actually be the anti-timing a little bit here, and it might trigger Lazy Azylis to go into some sort of counter push or maybe base trade scenario. We'll see. We'll never be able to get that base up. Cancels it right away, loses all of these structures and a lot of these workers as well. So this is also some critical damage that Schnubiii does here. Losing all the workers is really problematic. Doubling the supply of her opponent's zealots alone won't suffice against that army. Just moves in, sends in more workers. Okay, just now has a lot of sentries and force fields available, but force fields alone without units that actually pack enough punch won't really seal the deal. Can drive the units away for now, but it doesn't really matter. The most important part for Schnubiii right now is just to keep her opponent from expanding, and if she just makes sure that there's no ninja expand around and just keeps reinforcing her unit by just time after time, little after little, she can just wear down this army, because she can keep reproducing anything or everything she loses, while her opponent can't not. So every unit that Lady Azylis loses is almost a unit lost for good. Just warps in a few more High Templars because she just has so much of gas excess that she can morph them into Archons easily. But Schnubiii now also having the upgrade advantage here. There's, like I said, there's not actually much she can do. I don't really know if Schnubiii just missed the Warp Prism here. Yeah, she's run underneath it for quite some time, but she's obviously not paying attention to the minimap here, so she's not really taking it out. So Azylis could actually just morph in or warp in either here or over here. A few DTs maybe, just to send them towards the base. She's probably expecting her opponent to already have countermeasures in the form of static defense, but actually Schnubiii doesn't, and she hasn't even taken the gas over here. So Dark Templars could actually deal some damage, but yeah, of course it's risky to do. I mean, you usually don't warp them in thinking they might work. So, and this is just the Beggar Concave. This is the final stand. The last remaining army that Azylis actually has. Schnubiii a little bit indecisive, doesn't really know whether she wants to engage or not, just retreats for a second there, then realizing, hey, wait a moment, I've got way much more army than you do. And now finally moving in, killing off the rocks in order to make it a little bit more of a favorable concave. Azylis just trying to pick off a few more units left and right before the final engagement is going to happen, but her supply is dropping rapidly, killing off the last remaining rocks, just reproducing 8 more units, and now she's probably going to kill off the rest of them. Okay, has to be careful not to walk into her own biles, does not do so, but like I said, I mean, every unit that Lady Azylis loses is just a unit she will never be able to replace. Workers over here, but just not enough minerals. GG Wayplayed, and Schnubiii takes her first game against an FSL player in this season. Galactic Process is our third map. Spawning to the bottom left-hand corner in pink, playing Protoss, is Lady Azylis. And to the top right-hand side in teal, playing Zerg, it's Schnubiii, who's just managed to win her very first game against another FSL player in this season, with overwhelming unit macro. So just kept out producing her opponent eventually, keeping her back, defending the pushes that came at her again and again in waves. So nicely done. So let's see what Azylis is doing this time around. Actually quite an interesting pick here from her. Galactic Process, usually a map that Protoss don't really want to play against Zerg, especially since it's kind of difficult to really get that base down here going, since you have so much wide open space to cover and you can't really wall off this area pretty well. You need a lot of buildings in order to cover everything. There's also the possibility that the player might break through these rocks and open another entrance towards your base. There's also the chance that an opponent might tear down these rocks and then come in from that angle. So even closing off this ramp over here does not really secure you against everything. So yeah, that's not really a Protoss favorite map, I feel. But Azylis chose it, so maybe she has a plan she wants to go through with. Just did her normal build, this time only walling off at the main entrance, because like I said, this time around it's not that easy to wall off that section with only 3 buildings. So of course it's the wiser choice to wall off here. At the same time we see the good old standard usual build by Schnubiiii, going hatch first, into gas, into pool. Good old usual stuff. Could actually just now scout with the Overlord that a third has already thrown down very early on by Lady Azylis, and maybe then just answering with the own third straight away. But we have the 4 typical links, and there again it is. We can see that Schnubiiii is practicing and getting help by Mizukotze, because again we see some typical plays out of her that Mizukotze usually also does, and now using the links probably to get the watchtower or maybe some more scouting information. Okay, sees that the Nexus is already done, and like I said, we will see how she's going to answer towards that. If again she's just afraid of an all-in, that might actually happen once more, because we have the robotics facility already in the making. No further tech so far, but we will see what Azylis builds up afterwards. And okay, just checking the third for pesky probe, not expanding yet. Wants to get her bases saturated first before thinking about expanding once more. Okay, Stalker drives the Overlord away, will eventually get it because the Mothership cores around as well would also provide high ground vision if the Overlord actually could even fly towards the high ground, but it can't. And that's of course already an unfortunate loss there for Schnubiiii, losing that Overlord and 100, not only the 100 minerals, but you also have to replace it, so you use the lava and your supply capped for just a few seconds, always very annoying. So Twilight Council being out, we have the Immortal in play, so again, Lady Azylis doing her favorite trick. And we'll see whether it's going to be speedlots once more, or if she just says, yeah, you might have held it off once, but you will probably not be able to hold it off once more. You've lost once, you've won once. Let's see what the third one is going to be. And Schnubiiii this time around expanding a little bit earlier than in the other games. Feels obviously a little bit more comfortable against this kind of play, going into the safety roach. Warren, also good stuff here, and has already a few Zerglings out. That she could actually use a little bit better, I feel, than just having them standing around. Of course, maybe she's afraid of some adepts headed her way, but yeah, with maybe like a scouting ling over here, she could be quite safe against that. So that's the only thing I'm actually missing here. Everything just, and of course some lings at the watchtowers would also be quite okay. That's what Mizukotze uses them for usually. So I think there's a little bit of possibility to improve here. Yeah, but then again, we see that Schnubiiii is still afraid of Azylis doing some sort of cheesy push, and yeah, that's, I mean, rightfully so. She knows her opponent, she knows what to expect out of her, so she wants to have a few more units this time around, also starts producing a few roaches as well, so her plan to defend this is once more the same. Let's see if it's going to work out. I mean, this time around, yeah, there are a lot of possibilities to warp in. Azylis could actually just warp in a few units in here, just trying to take down the third, which will be her primary target. But of course, if it kind of not works, she might also just load a few units into the prism and then just send them into the main base at the same time. So we'll see what's going to happen. But Schnubiiii actually expects her opponent, or did she see it? It seems, oh yeah, there's the Overlord, so never mind. Okay, there's the Speed Overlord here. So she actually sees exactly what's coming and knows what's headed her way. already preparing ahead of time, just sends a few units over here, produces 6 more roaches. Dark Shrine almost done, which means the other gateways should also finish up at that point in time. Actually, even only the last one a little bit earlier. So Dark Shrine will just happen in just a few seconds as well, and then we will see the next wave of big warp-ins here. Okay, roaches already on the march. Dum dum dum, music really helping out here. And being quite atmospheric at that point in time. So the question right now is, does she really want to break through these rocks first? I mean, that would actually cost her a lot of time, right? Before she can finally engage, buying Schnubiiii even more time here. So Schnubiiii trying desperately to get up the upgrades. Ooh, unfortunately didn't get glial reconstitution out in time. And it's actually not producing more units because she was supply capped. No! Oh, this could actually be just the typical supply block we all know. The supply block you just can't afford to have because you need every minute, every second in order to have enough units. This time around, Azylis even cleverly warping in a few sentries in order to have enough against these roaches, and this should be way more difficult to defend, especially with the anti-positioning. Ooh, very nice force fields there by Azylis, just keeping out almost all of the roaches. Now just the Lings fighting against the Zealots, and once these speedlots come in, you actually have to micro your roaches, stutter stepping them like Marines mostly, but this third base is almost for certain a goner. So, and again, we're now at the position, if Schnubiiii just loses the third, this usually is the beginning of the end, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's not only the mining you're missing from the third base, which was actually not happening anyways, but it's mostly also the additional lava you really need. And of course, the mining afterwards. You need the base. You don't really need the base at that point in time once the push actually happens, although it's really helpful. And if you actually squeeze out some lava more, you can actually it's even easier to protect yourself against these sort of pushes, but you need them in the follow-up. Once you defend this push, you really want to get ahead economically, and therefore you need this third base. Because right at that point, like I said before, Azylis could actually just take a third base right now and retreat. Would be no problem. If she had a mothership core over here, she could even just recall back, because losing the third base is already such a big blow for Zerg that early on. So, let's see. I mean, Schnubiiii has 102 supply. It's 61 to 62. But and we don't have that many high-tech units around this time because of the sentries. The gas for DTs is just missing at that point in time. The force field's actually kind of working against Azylis here. The roaches actually have some time to take out these zealots. But yeah, Schnubiiii just mostly fighting against the speedlots here, not really retreating a little bit. Okay, a few more force fields getting out, and the biggest damage dealers, the Immortals, are right now the problem. Actually, having a lot of Lings right now would be just such a great thing to do, but it seems as if Schnubiiii might just barely be able to drive these units back. And again, since she doesn't really have anything to pick off that warp prism, should maybe try to pull the queens in order to take it down. But yeah, the reinforcements just keep getting in. Schnubiiii trying her best as she can to defend it. Nice little warp prism micro here by Lady Azylis, just loading up the injured unit, trying to set it out, killing off a few more units, just waiting for the next warp to arrive. Schnubiiii just barely defends, but the problem is that the warp prism is still there and might actually be able to just warp in 6, 7, 8 units at a time. Right afterwards, more roaches are coming in. Ooh, actually, unfortunately, oh no, there's just one zealot over here that just somehow sneaked its way in. Whew, and it seems like, again, Schnubiiii just drove back that push, but still, I mean, it looks as if she... Oh, there was actually some sort of warp and I missed during the main engagement, where some drones got killed in the process as well. So also a big blow. So if we just have a look, it's only 28 probes to 44, and that's now the really big problem, that the economy is not there in order to produce too many more units. So the army of Lady Azylis might just barely kill everything off. Roach is just trying to kill off these Archons, but the Archons just dealing splash damage like crazy against all of these biological units. And of course, if you don't take them down, they will regenerate all of their shields and come back to haunt you in just a few seconds. And like I said, losing the third is usually usually the down, is usually the beginning of the spiral that just goes down and down and down. Lady Azylis once more doesn't really want to retreat or try to take a third base, although she actually could, and then just transition into a macro game. Of course, she doesn't really know if her opponent might have retaken a third base down here. Hasn't really checked that, and but Schnubiiii didn't really have the chance to do any of that. It's just frantically producing more units, more units. She knows the next big follow-up push is going to happen, but she doesn't have an answer to these 6 Archons down here. I mean, that troop is just too small. Schnubiiii really has to retreat, play the waiting game, hoping that her opponent will give her a little bit more time in order to produce an army that can actually fend this push off, but her economy is just too weak. 27 workers against 44, both are on 2 bases. There's just no way that Schnubiiii will be able to take out this army here, especially not if it's clumped up, gets surrounded by these zealots, the Archons just tearing through everything. My god, the psionic power is overwhelming. GG, and Azylis takes the 3rd game for a 2-1 lead. King Sejong Station is our 4th map of this best of 5. Spawning to the top left-hand corner in pink, playing Protoss. It's Lady Azylis. And to the bottom right in teal, playing Zerk. It's Schnubiiii, who just needs to take that game because she's down 1-2. If she loses another one, the best of 5 will go to Lady Azylis. She's managed to hold off the pesky Immortal Zealot all-in once. Will she be able to do it again? Will Lady Azylis actually do it once more? Is the question. So we will just know in a few minutes' time. So far, actually, everything looks like normal standard build-up. We have the gateway and only 1 gas, so fast expand is bound to happen. Well, we already have the hatchery down for Schnubiiii. Schnubiiii again, just checking the typical proxy locations. Yeah, exactly. Just going over here. Also, typical proxy location somewhere around here, or even a little bit later on, or a little bit more laid behind on the map. And then she just sends the Overlord towards her opponent's base in order to get some scouting done later on. But yeah, nice scouting there by Schnubiiii. Expect her opponent that she might be doing some sort of proxy shenanigans here, although she doesn't. Nexus down. Cybernetics core down. Probes on the way, and the 2nd gas, of course. We're going to need that for the heavy attack later on. So, spawning pool is in the making. Seems as if Schnubiiii just wants to check for... Well, that would actually be a little late. If there actually was some sort of proxy cannon rush or proxy gateway happening over here, that scout would be a little bit too late, since the hatchery is already done. If that had been a cannon rush, she would have already gotten attacked by cannons by now. So, yeah, that was... still, once checking the surroundings... and now trying to saturate that base after seeing with the Overlord that the Nexus is almost complete. So maybe she'll again just react with an early 3rd base, which is actually the best thing you can do, even against or especially actually against this kind of Immortal all-in, where you sometimes might think that you just actually want to save as many resources for units. So you're actually afraid of taking a 3rd and taking it late, but you actually want to have a 3rd out as early as possible and then just keep droning like crazy until the around 5 to 6 minute mark, where you then just want to start only producing units out of 3 bases. And that actually grants you more units in the long run, although you might not think it does. So actually holding the push on 2 bases is actually way more difficult than on 3. Although it seems counterintuitive somehow, where you say, well, I sacrificed 300 resources. I also sacrifice lava and more resources into drones in order to get the saturation going. And that should actually delay my tech and everything. But you don't actually need that tech so early on. You just need to have it on point. And that's just the important thing. But of course, you always have to assume that this kind of push is actually coming. You actually need to have the information, because being that greedy could actually kill you, or any other push could actually then just maybe kill you, or light adept harassment early on when you don't have enough units, because you're just so greedy trying to get the drones out as soon as possible before you then start producing units. So it's easier said than done. So, but yeah, it is the absolute same thing. Lady Azylis playing the same push for 4 times in a row. Never change a winning tactic, I guess. So, hatchery almost done. The Immortals still on the way. The Twilight Council on the way as well. We will see mass warp gates in just a few seconds. And here they come, at least the first 3-1, helping to wall off that area. Actually, some sort of cheese might have helped Schnubiiii quite well. I mean, have a look at these defenses here. There's just nothing. So, like, an early Ling Roach Ravager push would have just probably easily killed Lady Azylis. Maybe even a Baneling bust. So, that's actually kind of a weakness she could have exploited here, maybe, I feel. So, Warp Prism is full. It's loaded. And now Schnubiiii should actually just start producing units like crazy. Like I said, not usually after the 5-minute mark, around 5.5, you should usually just start producing. Well, actually at 5. 5 is like the timing. So, oh, actually moving out, which is quite interesting here. Don't really know what she wants to do there. Has she seen something? Oh, she actually just wants to check whether there might be a new proxy or something. We'll actually, quite interestingly, see the Warp Prism here with the Lings. Do these Lings actually even have speed? Where's the speed? Did she forget speed? Ooh, she did. Ugh. Unfortunately. So it will probably just still be on time. Okay, sniffed out the Warp Prism here. Schnubiiii did. Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe she didn't really pay attention to the minimap, but it wouldn't have really worked out to just try to surround all of these zealots here. They would have just ripped through the links, so it was actually a good thing that it didn't really happen. Baneling Nest on the way. We have a Spine Crawler in the back to help defend against some sort of drop-off maybe, or even, well, actually it won't really help against DTs here. So maybe just expecting the Warp Prism to load off a few units maybe in the main base in order to do the same harassment she did on Galactic Process. But yeah, we need units, not drones. Drones is not what you want to produce, Schnubiiii. No! Don't produce drones. You need units like crazy. She has a lot of Lings around, but their opponent has a lot of Zealots once more. It's speedlots, and they really shred through unupgraded Lings, and the upgrades are far away, getting double evolution chamber here, which is actually not really necessary. You don't need double evolution chamber if you haven't even saturated your third base. This is just a waste of resources at that point in time. 5 more roaches coming in, but I really don't feel as if she will be able to defend that third base, and if she doesn't, we're at the same thing I was talking about earlier on. Losing the third base is so critical. It's like if you lose it, it's GG almost immediately at that point. I mean, if you then at least manage, if your opponent just overcommits, you have the bigger army and can actually kill off this army, and then the third dies, but you can actually kill off everything, then of course it's fine and okay. But Schnubiiii mostly losing everything in the attempt to save her third base, doesn't save it, loses all of the army units, doesn't have enough in order to hold that push. Force fields now even, seals of the main ramp, so reinforcements can't arrive at the front. GG, and Azylis takes the game and the match 3-1.